Hello, this is a review of Monday, the 19th of January. Quite a unique session today. So the US market was shut, which is, a rarity in itself, only happens a handful of times a year. But also, it's a Monday, and also we've had massive news and shit going on with Greenland over the weekend. So it was a range bound session, which is typical of when the EU markets are open but the Americans shut. But what was abnormal is that was still within that range a huge amount of volatility due to the news over the weekend. So we traded in a 160 point range this morning, which isn't huge generally, but it is big for a day where the US markets are shut. Which made it tricky to trade because you can't really go off of it much experience here. So the market opened at the lows. Just before the market opened, we had a load of buyers come in below the overnight range. Very, very quick, aggressive push from about 8 minutes into the open to about 20 minutes in. So it was about a 10-minute rally. Very, very strong. Too fast, too early in the session to trade and make any money off. It's a sort of rally that if it happens a little bit later in the session, it's great. And then the market came up to the top of the overnight range. We saw some resistance, a little bit of selling, a push to try to break above and start a rally higher. This was a real trap for buyers. This was a real bull trap there, because it did look, this 1 minute candle here, it completely engulfs everything, but then it doesn't really get any higher than that. And then since then, we have been on a slow sell-off back down to where we started, and now we're just sort of ambling around in the middle of nowhere, and will likely amble around somewhere within this range throughout the rest of the day, unless some sort of new news comes out. I doubt we will make any serious moves above or below this range that you're seeing here until tomorrow, because the US markets are shut. So it's likely to be a fairly quiet afternoon. Now, obviously, if Trump tweets out something, then it could all go crazy. But yeah, unless anything crazy happens, we're likely going to start tomorrow within this range again. And then it will be an interesting case to see where we go from here. But I think the chances of there not being some big news coming out in the next day or two is probably quite low. So the market's likely to be moved by the news. In terms of our trades, it was a profitable morning, nothing crazy. It was about a 0.7 R, which is about £700. I don't know how to get rid of these lines. I don't normally draw lines on this platform. I have no idea how to do that. Okay, you have to ignore these horizontal lines. If I turn, I have no idea why my screen just cut out there. I'm only using two screens. It doesn't ever normally cut out with two screens. Oh well. Okay, so our trades this morning, we entered short, and this was a bit of an early short. This was a bad entry. I quickly realized that and closed it for break even, because I hadn't seen, there was no confirmation yet that the market was headed higher. Now I was in the end correct, but that's sort of irrelevant. Being right and wrong isn't what matters. It's about risk management. So that was poor, because if the market had blown up at that point, then I would have been very quickly stopped out. So I was quite lucky not to be. Then I entered in a better short position after confirmation that we'd hit some resistance. If we really zoom in to understand why I entered here. Cutting out. I really have no idea. It's never done this before. You're just gonna have to bear with me on that. So when the market was moving higher, you saw these wick. You can see a wick down here. This candle, then it's really hard to see. This candle then broke below that wick and closed below, and that's where I shorted, which you can see with that tiny little triangle, which might be hard to see. Tiny little, that's my entry, and then I exited down at the bottom here. So it was a good quick scalp, £500. Why did I exit? Oh, man. Okay, I'm going to make this quick. I can't even remember why I exited here. I think it was just because of this green candle. But it was a great exit because I exited right at the low. The market then rallied higher, which I said was a bull trap. And I was one of the bulls that nearly got trapped, but I did okay because I managed to get out break even. This candle here, where it pushed above the highs, looked really good, and then zoom, aggressive closing in the red. This was my sign to try and get out, and I did. I managed to get out. Usually this sort of entry would be great, but when the US market's shut and we're likely to be in a range bound session, I should maybe just avoid this sort of breakout trade altogether on this sort of day. Then I traded. At least this doesn't happen while I'm live trading. So weird. So weird. So we had a push in this candle down below what was the prior high of the morning. We had an attempt to push higher, but then back closing down below. And then that was my signal to try and get short. The market was then consolidating here. So I took an exit for a very small profit. This is the trade where I should have potentially held. Difficult to do that, to say that in hindsight, because we were at the top of the range. And even though I wasn't expecting a breakout to the long side, I still wasn't sure because this is a weird, unique trading day today. Had I held that, that could have turned into a really good trade. Hindsight is 2020, so I'm not going to be too self-critical there. I'm not going to be too self-critical, but next time we enter a trade like this, I will remember this one. So yeah, it was a profitable session, the sort of session that's not going to pay me loads of money, but it should hopefully pay for a losing day, which is nice because this is the sort of day that could have easily been a loser, but it turned out to be a winner, which is nice. If we carry on our current performance, we are looking at somewhere 6 to 8 weeks until we pass all the challenges to get funded. Looking at 6 to 8 weeks, so sort of end of Feb to mid-March, if I can continue this, which would be incredible. So yeah, we're feeling good now. I'm feeling really good. The first sort of 8 to 10, well, not 10, maybe 6 to 8 trading sessions of this year, up to the middle of last week, I wasn't very happy. Just a lot of confusion, really, on my part about what exactly I was doing, along with the pressure of doing this challenge and the expectation of performing and being profitable. But now I feel like I've gotten used to that expectation to a large extent, and it's showing in my results. So yeah, there we go. More, hopefully, will be another good session tomorrow. And yeah, until then, thank you. Sorry that the screen's been messing around. I have no idea why this does this. It's never done it before on a 2-screen setup, but there we go. So I'll see you tomorrow, hopefully with no